Hello, I guess we are live. Hello, am I audible? Hello, give me a quick yes in the chat if I am audible. Am I audible? Hello. Yes, perfectly fine. Good afternoon. Okay, so I welcome you everyone here. In the last session, what we have discussed in the last session, we were discussing about API integration, right? What actually API integration is, how to do API integration, what is Axios, what is fetch, and what is 10 stack query, right? We have also seen 10 stack implementation, how it is a bit different than having a normal use fetch hook. So just a quick recap, if you are using, let me just share my screen, then we'll be able to continue. So just a quick recap if you guys are new in this session. So just a quick heads up. In the last session, we tried to discuss about APIs. Okay. And if I give you a little recap about API, API is nothing but a link. I will just say it. Okay? API is nothing but a link, right? And whenever you talk about link, what actually links it consists of? Simple, a protocol of transfer, that is HTTP, or it can be HTTPS, it totally depends. And after all, it will be having a host. Host can be your domain, okay, and host can be a local host if you are running a local machine. Then it will be having a endpoint, okay, where actually on this link you want to go. Like if we are having HTTP, let's take an example, HTTP, and we are using www.geeksforgeeks or gfg.org/web development. Okay, this is how you type a link. What actually you are utilizing unconsciously is an API, right? This is an API that gives you information about web domain into the Geeks4Geeks domain. Basically, the house of the, you can say, technical content and the resources. You are just picking web development as your selected resource, right? And I have also talked about some API contracts and rules, and what are the contracts that we need to keep that in mind before you even start making APIs. You need to keep one thing in mind: if you are not aware about contracts, that will be a very let's suppose a very complicated things to counter in this situation. If you are not aware how to create contracts and what are actually contracts. So let me just give a quick recap on that as well before we move on to authentication part, how actually design a authentication flow of an application. Now, if I talk about contracts, contracts do have a name, second name, that is known as, you can say, agreement between two parties. And let's suppose it's a party and the B party. Okay. And before they start sharing the data, they handshake. Okay. And what this handshaking looks like, we can call it a TCP handshaking, a handshaking which can be a TLS handshaking as well. And after that, we try to have a connection. Simple, there is a connection, there's a two-way communication that we try to conduct, and we can share the data between them. And before actually you handshake, you need to follow certain rules or some regulation that you are mutually agreeing upon. And same goes with authentication flow as well, because these things are connected. Because if you are calling a auth API to, let's suppose, validate the user, you have to understand one fact, that you need to priorly set some prerequisite done in order to let's suppose type a good flow for authentication or authorization. Now problem is key, what comes under API contracts? Naming convention, first thing first. Key, how you name the API, that is also part of contracts. How you will be sending the request, and you how you will be receiving the response, that means data type, that is also a, you can say, a part of agreement, right? And how you will be storing, let's suppose, tokens, that is a part of uh, contracts. Let's suppose how you going to use status code, that's a part of, you can say, contract. How you are going to use method is a part of contracts. That means everything that we need to work with is a part of contract before you even think about making APIs, right? And we have talked about name. What is the special about name? Name is something that you cannot use verbs. Simple. You cannot use verbs like get all user, update my user. You cannot use the endpoint name like this. What you have to use, instead of using verbs, you need to use nouns. Okay. What actually nouns means? All users, not especially all users, but you can, instead of writing get all users, let's suppose you are writing get all user. Okay, and instead of writing get all user, this is a verb. Okay, you are trying to define an action by the English word, right? That instead of doing that, you can directly say space users. That is a noun. And you will be using a get method, obviously. When you are using get method, that means you are eventually depicting or conveying the same meaning as your verb. Okay, you are going to get all user within this particular database. Simple. Safi is saying, hello, sir, I'm new here. Welcome. Hi. We are discussing our authentication flow and APIs something, or API security. Okay. In this, the whole series of front-end engineering, that how you can design an application from scratch to advanced level, how to implement security of APIs, how to implement authentication flow. Okay, that we are discussing. And this is not relevant to a specific React only. Okay, some people will say, "Ki we are just implementing React." No, React is just a medium to implement, because if I try to show you via directly backend that we are going to write some security over here, the backend code as well. So you need to understand that whenever you are designing authentication flow, some of the logic you need to write in JS. Okay, so that we are going to see as well. But currently I'm discussing that how to create APIs. What are the naming conventions that you need to follow? What are the status codes that you need to be aware of while creating APIs? So instead of using verbs, as I said, you have to use nouns. All users, instead of using all users, you can directly say users, right? If you want to have admin, you want to have orders, that is a basic naming convention that you want to follow. Now, after that, if you coming to data type, you need to define whether in header which type of data that we are dealing with. Let's suppose you are saying key data is JSON. Majority of the time data will be on JSON. Okay, yeah, data can be on plain text. Generally plain text can be there. Data can be on a HTML file. Okay, it can be some component as well. That means data type, you need to define which type of data my user is going to deal, or my server is going to be dealing with. Now, token, you need to define whether you are going to use cookies, local storage, where you are going to put or you can store the token for the server. And status code is most important thing, that whatever happens with your request, you need to present that status of the request with a specific code. And why not you can create your own status code? Yes, we can. Why not? Who said ki we cannot create it? Yes, we can create it, but the problem is it will create a chaos. Why chaos? Let me take an example. Let's suppose this is a A guy and this is a B guy, and they have to work with a C system. Okay, and A is a client, B is a team lead of A, and C is the product that you want to interact with. Simple. If your A system is going to interact, A will say, ki, okay, I am going to interact with C. And B said, ki, the moment you successfully interact with your system, please raise a hand. Let's suppose, please do a thumbs up. That means for B, the meaning of success can be represented by a thumbs up. Okay, that means it's a specific rule. Ki whenever things went all right, you need to do a thumbs up. That means I will know ki actually things went well. But the moment you reach to this particular C, and the moment you thought ki, okay, things are going well, and you are just waving the hand to the B, what does that mean? Because we have already told you ki we will only understand if things went well or not if you are raising a thumbs up. But if what you are doing this, that means you are choosing your own representation of the status. And if you are choosing a wrong interpretation or wrong code or wrong signal to represent your status, user will be confused. or in between your team itself, if you are representing status with the wrong code, your team might get confused, or your interns or newcomers as an engineer might get confused. See what actually this means. That means your ECMAScript or your Express.js have set a standard rule that in what scenario you can use which type of status code. There are five type of status code that you can have generally. If you want to present an information means information for the server. You want to upgrade your header, if you want to upgrade your status, if you want to upgrade your connection type, whatever the information header you want to present for the server or by the server, you have to use a status code ranging from 100 to 199. And for them, one of the special header that you will be interacting with is 101. 101 means upgrade. Why we use upgrade header? Upgrade header is simple header. That means if you want to convert your HTTP connection to WebSocket, okay, generally you should know that your every connection is a HTTP behind the scene. Either it's a WebSocket or WebRTC hooks, everything a HTTP connection first. Then we upgrade that connection to somewhat new connection. Let's suppose HTTP to a WebSocket connection, a real-time communication channel. Right. So if you want to represent any information for the server, that you will be using a info header that is 100 to 199. Now, if you are going to use a status code that represents successful representation, that means whatever you were trying there on the server was successful. In that particular zone, you will be using 200 to 299. That is known as success. And one of the few header that you are going to use in this, that is 200. 200 means okay. That means whatever you are asking, gone good. That means thumbs up. If you are trying to create a new user, 201. Let's suppose it is going to be say new user created or user created. Okay, whenever in database you are creating a user, after user is successfully created, you can fire this 201 as a status code. So everyone from the backend team or everyone from the programming team will understand that, that means user has been successfully created. Right. Now, if you want to do a redirection, let's suppose what is redirection. If my user is coming on sbi.co.in, generally you should be aware about this new you can say development around the banking system, that now bank had changed their domain. Now every bank have to include .bank.in as their suffix in their domain, so no one can do a scam or fraud, to prevent those kind of scenarios. So every bank have added a domain name that is a bank.co.in or bank.in. But generally, what we do, we generally, let's suppose we are going to hit online SBI. Generally, what we do, we hit online SBI, right? Because we don't remember the actual domain, we directly hit online SBI and we click on that first link, and this link will automatically redirect me on online SBI dot bank dot in. That means the actual resources that you are looking for is not lying in online SBI now. It has been shifted from online SBI to online SBI.bank.in. That is known as permanently moved. So let's suppose if you want to represent this, you are coming at the right, you can say address, but now this resource has been moved from this place to some secondary place. That is known as movement or redirection. So whenever you want to represent a redirection response, you will be representing it via 300 to 399. Okay, that is known as redirection response. Okay, redirection response. Okay, now after that, there might be scenarios that you might encounter some error, and there are some identification of the error, that because we are going to have a full system, full working system, like client will be there, server will be there, API will be there. So you need to figure out that at which end, whether it's on client end or server end, which end has to be checked or diagnosed first. If to represent this, if any error is coming from client side, that means if they are providing a wrong data, if they are trying to access something without payment, if they are trying to access some unauthorized content, right, if they are trying to access a certain resource more than they should require, right, in this particular thing we will be using a client side error response that is started from 400 to 499. Okay, 49, this is known as client side response or client side error response. Whenever the fault is in client, right? We can represent that using 400 to 499 range. Let's suppose if you're going to use unauthorized, this people is not authorized to enter in this route, so we can represent 401. We can also represent 400, that means a bad request. We can also represent 403, that means forbidden, this is not allowed. And if you are using 404, that means the resource that you are trying to access is not found. That is 404. There are some of the, you can say, famous status code that you should be aware of. Because this is not specifically to React or specifically to Node.js or Express or Next.js. These are the standards, or as an engineer you should be knowing while designing your front end or any authentication flow. Generally, the thing I'm going to talk about is JWT now. In JWT, we assign a token to user, and every time user come onto my, let's suppose, system, they will present me that token, right? They have to present the token so I can verify whether they are the same user or the different user. So I don't have to ask them email ID and password again and again. In that scenario, we need to ask token from the user. So whenever the token we'll try to verify, if this is not verified, so why I will be presenting a 401, that means you are not authorized to access this particular resource, right? Now, after that, if the, you can say, if the problem is not lying from the client, that means client is doing everything right, we are at the fault. If we are doing something wrong, in this particular scenario, we'll be using 500 to 599. That is known as server side response. Whenever something has to be delivered from the server side as an information, we'll be using 500 to 599 as a status range. So in one of the important one that you see, that is 501, something went wrong, it's not you, it's us. That type of error, that is internal server error, can be represented using 501. Now, after those kind of headers, I have also need to put focus on methods. The method is also important as the status codes, because your status codes define कि you can figure out what actually going wrong in the system or what actually happening in the system, to be very precise. But if you are having an incorrect status code, let's suppose everything is correct, right? Let's suppose user has been created and I am firing a 403. What my developer will think? Developer say 403 month means forbidden. That means this user is not allowed to enter, but in actual user has been already created. That means if you are misinterpreting the status of the request, it will create a unnecessary confusion. Simple. In that particular scenario, whenever you need to counter that, you need to use a proper ECMA defined status codes. But after defining a status code, you also need to work on methods. Method means कि whatever, or you can say whatever task you need to perform, you need to specifically tell the purpose of the task and the way to do that particular task to your server. And how so? Actually, it will be like this. Let's suppose there is a database. Let's create a database over here. This is a database I want to have. And if I wanted to fetch the user detail, this is my database. Let's suppose MongoDB in the Munstack case. And I am, this is a client, and client want all users detail. Client is saying, "Okay, I will be requiring whatever the user is stored in your system, I want to get that user." That means I will be using a get route to fetch it. Whenever you want to fetch something, you will be using a get route. Perfectly fine. Whenever you want to send something to the server, whenever you want to create a new user or new registration, you will be using post. Okay. And if I want, I can use this post to delete anything, to update anything. There is no compulsion that I should be using a different approach in order to update any user or delete any user. But the problem is, should I be performing this particular methodology? But if we are having a specific domain or a specific route for each and every designed task, that means if you want to fetch any user, you need to use get. Okay. If you want to send something to server, you need to use post. Okay. Or if you want to update anything, you need to use put or patch. Put or patch. Simple. And if you want to delete any resources, you need to use delete. Simple. These are the method that has been defined by Express, and these are defined in the API contracts. Ki whatever type of task you are performing, you need to make sure that you are using a relevant method to tell the server that what actually they need to do. If you are deleting some user, if you are using post, but this will be like this कि अगर मैंने आपको कोई एक certain task करने के लिए कोई चीज दे रखी है, तो why you are doing this? That means अगर मैं आपको कहूँ कि आपको अगर 5 किलोमीटर कहीं जाना है, ठीक है, तो आप साइकिल यूज कर लीजिए, ओके, एंड इफ यू वांट टू गो 10 to 15 किलोमीटर, यूज माय बाइक, ओके, बट इफ यू वांट टू गो मोर देन 15 किलोमीटर, you should be going by car. So you have multiple methods to travel, but they all are same thing. They allow you to travel. But what you are doing actually, if you want to travel 15K, you are using, instead of cab, you are using cycle. Obviously, you will be reaching there, but time taken, complexity, problems, system compatibility, optimization will be affected, right? So if I'm saying if this is a range, please use cycle. If this is a range, use bike. If this is a range, use car. Same over here. If you want to fetch anything, use this. If you want to send something, use this. If you want to update something, use either of them. If you want to delete something, use them. That means these are the individual method that has been defined by Express.js. They follow a API contracts. You need to use them, but it is not compulsion to follow them. You can use a post route to create anything. You can update that, you can delete that, right? But the problem is, should you be using those kind of method, or whether you can use it or not? Answer is no, you should not. That is not a part of optimization. Now, I will be. This was the thing that we discussed in the last session, and now I'll be moving to security and authentication. That is a part of thing. I am English biased, so I had to guess gracefully. Okay. So what actually I was saying, कि whenever you talk about an API, so API security is also important. कि whenever you are making any API, how to secure that, how to keep your API healthy. In that particular case, few of the things that you need to keep that in mind. Two of them I have already discussed. That is known as debounce and throttle, right? Debounce and throttle we have discussed already in the last session. Now we are going to work with, you can say, a rate limiting. And whenever you are aware about rate limiting, the security comes into effect. Let's suppose we are having a resource B, and every time I'm making a B as a resource, so you have to keep that in mind. B is a resource, and A is a client. Okay, simple. A is a client. So A is sending a request, okay, to B, and B is processing that request. Fair enough. But the problem is, how many requests can B process that is coming from him? If you are sending 10, 20, 50, 100 requests to your server, that is unnecessary. If these are the meaningful requests, that's good. But if they are unnecessary requests like DDoS, if somebody is trying to attack your website with bombarding the number of requests in your server to just slow your server, to get your server down in that kind of intention, you need to figure out that how to limit your user to make a request onto your system. In this particular case, your rate limiting concept come into picture. Rate limiting can be done in multiple ways. It can be a flag based, it can be a, you can say, Redis based, that means IP based configuration. It can be a normal limitation number of requests coming to the server. So there are a few, you can say, modules as well, like Express rate limiter is there, Redis is also there, Redux is also there, in order to maintain a limit on the request. And we can also set up a manual middleware to check whether how many requests is coming from that IP. So rate limiter is a technique where we limit number of requests coming onto the server itself. So what actually you need to keep that in mind. Let's suppose I'm defining a simple window-based rate limiter. So if I'm saying in this particular thing, I will be defining window time that is in millisecond. I'm defining in 45 minute into 60, that is second, into 60, that is millisecond. Okay, in this particular time, your limit should be, let's suppose, 2. There's a simple code that you can write, and then your error or message you can fire. too many requests. Let's suppose too many requests. That is 429 error. I believe 429 was there just for sending a too many requests. Now, this is a time that I am tracking on a specific route. This is a limit that I'm defining, and this is a message that I want to throw when the user crosses that limit. So window MS means in express rate limiter, this is a time window that I will be tracking. Have you noticed one thing in Instagram? You will not be able to update your username in the time span of 45 days twice. You can only update your username once within the time span of 45 days. How they are able to do this? They are able to define this window time within 45 days. How we can define 45 days, 24 hours, 60 minute, 60 second, and 60 millisecond. That is a 45 days millisecond. And I will be defining limit as one, and error is can't update before 45 days. Simple. That's how you can do it. I will be tracking the route. That is a route. इसे कहते हैं route based rate limiting. कि let's suppose I'm having a route profile update. This is a simple route update request, and I will be making the request on Instagram to update my username. So first it will check if the duration is complete or not, the limit is there or not. If both of the condition get false, they will say too many requests, please try after 45 days. That is known as route based rate limiting. But if you want, you can do IP based rate limiting as well. How? If you have to understand Redis, how many of you are very comfortable in Redis? Anyone? Let me check comment. Parth asking from where, sir? Maharashtra, Pune. Okay. I have used once. Okay, you have used once Redis. If you don't know why Redis is used for caching. Caching simply means if I'm asking you that what is 2 into 3, you need to answer 6. And how you are answering this thing without calculating this, that means you know it, you remember it back of the mind, right? So but if I ask you to keep power 76, you will say okay, that I need to calculate, right? In that particular scenario, I need to understand whether this particular data I have encountered it before or not. If I have not encountered, I will calculate it. If I have encountered it, I will be using a cache memory to store it and fetch from the cache memory. That will be a fast retrieval. And this is known as cache hit and cache miss. So let's suppose this is a server where all the processing will happen. If this is A as a client, the moment A send a request, first I will be checking a middleware, that is a Redis middleware. I will check whether this particular key of the data is available or not. If available, I'll throw the response from here. That is known as cache hit. The cache got up hit, so I will be not be going to server because I have that information stored. So I will be giving you that information via CDN or by caching. And if the moment is if I'm sending a request and cache got missed, that is known as cache miss. If the cache got missed, then I have to go to server, then come back again. So Redis is in-memory database that I can use to store hot data. What is hot data? The frequently asked data that user is using. So rather than going again and again to the server, main server, I will be delivering that from your nearest server. That is known as CDN, Content Delivery Network. That's a nearest geographical location from where I can give you the data. That is not actual server, to be very honest. Actual server is lying somewhere else, right? So this is what caching look like. So let's suppose what I was saying, how caching work. Caching have a middleware. Let's suppose Redis configuration. Redis is having a IP access. So it will do redis.ip. I will check request.ip. I will get the access of your IP by a request and response object, and I will track that particular IP. If the limit, I will define a limit as well. The limit is currently 0 and max limit is, let's suppose max limit is 3. So every time your same IP, your request is coming, I'm checking your IP. And if your IP match, I will increase this by one. Every time you come, I will again add one. Every time you come, again I'll add one. Like the moment it will reach the maximum thing, so I will use limit greater than, or let's suppose equal to 3 or greater than equal to 3, I will throw a error key too many requests. That is known as Redis based configuration. You can also do a Redux based rate limiting as well, but rate limiting is something that you need to include in your APIs, so API gets secured. You can also give it a flag based rate limiting. What is flag based? That is not a bucket based rate limiting. Bucket based rate limiting is, yeah, I will define a max limit. Max limit means ki this is a maximum limit I am assigning. It's a quota. Just like you buy a premium of Claude, so you get 1,000 token limit. Let's suppose that's a max limit that you can have. Let's suppose I'm defining max limit is 5. So every time you are coming to my server, I will reduce that by 1. That means I will mark this a request 1 is done, then 2 is done, then 3 is done, 4 is done, 5 is done. Your bucket is 0. The moment your bucket 0, the next time you come, you will not have any of the available limit. You will be saying your limit has maxed out. You are not, you can say, eligible to make a request. Please try after some time. That is what you can say bucket based rate limiting looks like, right? And with that, you can also have, let's suppose, a debounce. You can also have throttle, so you can limit the number of requests coming onto server. But number of requests is coming onto server, how will I verify is the same user or not? That's where your authentication come into picture. So there are two terms that you need to understand before you go auth diving. This is known as auth n and auth z. Okay, auth n and auth z. Authentication versus authorization. And in I will tell you both of the thing. Authentication means we are just doing sanity check. This is actually known as sanity check. Sanity check means we are going to verify the user credential, each and everything, email is correct or not, right? A password is 6-digit long or not, email is having at the rate or not, if the user is, whether user is submitting it empty string or not. I will be verifying this. This is known as sanity check. We can provide any check to authenticate whether it's a valid credential holder or not. Let's suppose I want a password in my login system of length minimum 6-digit, or user is providing 1 2 3 4, let's suppose. So we need to authenticate that user first, ki whether the 6-digit password is there or not. If it is 1 2 3 4, that is a 4-digit password, I'll throw them out. It's an error, you cannot share me that, right? That is known as authentication. And the moment you authenticate the user, ki now this is a valid user, but authorization will make sure that the user that is authenticated priorly will be able to access only that content that has been authorized to. Let's take an example. Let's suppose I'm in a Geeks organization. So problem is ki I'm having an iCard. Let's suppose I'm having an ID, and that ID allow me to enter in the company, simple company building. Okay, but with that ID I can also have lunch, I can also access you can say normal sitting areas, management area. But can I access the admin or IT bay? Can I go in server room? Answer is no, I cannot go in server room because I don't have access to it. But same ID holder with some extra privilege, my IT guy or IT admin will be able to roam around in this building as well, and will be able to walk into the server room as well. But what is this? What is special in that particular guy that is roaming around in the server room as well? That means you will say he or she is having some privilege, right? That privilege is known as authorization. This particular user is having some access additionally at on your card as well that you cannot have, or you are not authorized to have. So by this particular authorization, he or she will be able to move in IT way. But I am not having the access on my ID card that is there in this second gentleman. So I will not be able to move around in this area. And that is something that you can notice in Google Docs, Google Sheet as well. If I assign you the access of viewer only, can you edit that particular sheet? Answer is no, you cannot edit it. Now, so Authentication can be done using some validation check, some sanity check, or some undefined or inbuilt validators as well. Like Express validator will be there, right? Zoe will be there, Zord will be there, and you can say in front end you can have Formic as well for validation, and Yup as well for the schema validation. Okay, that will check whether you are putting a at the rate into or not. You are putting you can say 6-digit password or not. Whether the email is containing at the rate or not, right? Those kind of scenario. Praiseworthy. Good afternoon, Prince. And after authentication is completed, you need to go to authorization check. Okay, I need to define whether this particular user is authorized to access this resource or not. For that, authorization or authentication, let's suppose in authorization, there is a one term that is known as RBAC, role-based access control. That's the most important thing in front end, or you can say back end. It is not about front end or back end, it's a technique that is known as role-based authentication control. Okay, I can assign role-based access. Let's suppose one user I am onboarding, I'm making an account of that user, and I'm assigning a role of user only. Simple. So every time this user is coming with their credential, this user will have their credential. Let's suppose username is because and password is 1234. Okay. If this user is coming with that credential, I know this is a valid user, but I will also check if this user only having the access of user user mode. So it cannot access the admin panel. Okay, so if I this particular user is trying to access the admin panel, I will throw error. It's a, let's suppose 403. I will say forbidden. You are not allowed to access this particular route. You are just having a access of user only. So come with the admin credential. Otherwise, do not click on this particular route. Sometimes you need to do a payment as well. Let's suppose you are trying to access something without payment. So they will throw you a 401 or 403 that payment required or 407 payment required. So you will not be able to get that route until unless you are not making payment, right? So this is known as role-based access control. But if I assign from user only mode to admin or super admin, I can assign a different task. Okay, this particular user is having admin access. This admin is having a super admin access. So these are the resources that this guy can access. These are the resources that this guy can access. That is known as role-based access control, right? And after that, whenever you need to do authorization or authentication, your authentication can be done using two types, that is known as stateful authentication and stateless authentication. So when you talk about stateless or stateful authentication, let's understand first stateful authentication. When you talk about stateful authentication, what do you mean by stateful? Stateful means we are going to store something. Simple. State full means we are going to store something. And store something simply means कि whenever a user coming onto my a portal or in my platform, I will take the username, okay, password, or let's suppose it's role. Okay, what is the role of this? And I will use a session. I will create a session ID of it, and I will store that session ID in my server, okay, on my server. So every time user is coming, they don't have to authenticate themselves again and again. What I will be using, I will be using their session ID, and I will be picking out username, password, and the role. So I know without them logging in again and again with their credential, I can use the session ID to predict whether it's the same user or not. So they will be, they don't have to log in their system again. But we need to store the information of session ID on somewhere else in local storage or sessions or those kind of things. That means server have additional task to do. Or in that particular scenario, when server have additional tasks to do, we don't want that. That will hurt our performance if server is having some other task to perform as well. That's the thing that I don't want. In that particular thing, we want to free the server, that we don't want to store sessions and session ID. What we want, everything can be controlled on user's end. That means I don't want to store anything on the server. In API, when I was teaching you REST architecture, I have told you one of the key rule of REST API is statelessness. And what do you mean by statelessness? The server will not store any information, or server will not utilize any information uh, for the first request in order to process your second request. And what is statelessness here comes into picture? They are saying ki every time you come onto my server now, you have to provide each and everything. We are not stateful, we are not storing anything, so I don't know who you are. You need to prove yourself every time you come onto my server ki you are the same user. But if I ask my user, or you can say to present their ID again, it will be very hectic thing. How user will maintain the token, how user will be you can say verifying their identity here and there, and after every 5 minutes or 7 minutes. For that particular moment, we started stateless authentication. Now, user will not have to carry anything. I will be making a system that I will use a client side only, because I will be utilizing client side, but I will be making sure that I don't have to store anything on my side. That is a stateful. So that is known as one of the thing that you need to study here, that is known as JWT. Okay, and JWT is a token based authentication. After first login, they will assign you a token. Simple. Token contain three things. First one is a header. Here encryption technique, SHA-256 algorithm, hashing algorithm will be there, separated by dot. Then they will have a payload. Payload means the data. In this payload, I can store username, I can store email, I can store role. But do not store your password here. Okay, just a small suggestion. You cannot store password over here. Otherwise, if this token is being, you can say, stolen or something like that, if user is able to verify it, that thing will be very bad. Now, in this particular case, after storing the payload, I need to put a, you can say, unique signature over here. That means I need to seal that particular token with my signature. And this is thing that stop us, or that prevent every or any theft that can happen on my token. You cannot copy the token, you cannot clone that token. And why? Problem is, if you can say, sir, if I somebody is able to find my token, then because we are not assigning a single token, we assign two tokens over here. First token is known as access token, second one is known as refresh token. Okay, first one is access token and second one is refresh token. Access token is known as short-lived token. Short-lived token means it will be you can say living for 5 to 10 minutes. Okay, not more than that. Okay, and refresh token is also there, that is a long-lived token. Okay, and why do we require two type of tokens over here? Access token is short-lived because it will be assigned and you can use it to make a login every time you come onto this. But after 5-10 minutes, this token will expire. Now, if this token is expired, how I'm able to regenerate the token? How will I verify that this is the same user or not? Then I have to use a refresh token in order to assign the second token. I can reassign or renew the token with the help of the refresh token. But the problem is, if the refresh token is a long-lived token, you can say, sir, if I steal your refresh token, then if I steal this token, there might be scenario. If I'm stealing your token, then what can happen? Nothing can happen, because this particular token is rotating on the time frame basis. That means I will be rotating this token every 1 hour, 2 hour, let's suppose every 7 days, 5 days, or let's suppose whatever the time duration I'm saying. This is a, you can say, rotatory token. So you cannot have an exact token at that exact moment of time. So it is very safe, not concrete, but yes, this is one of the safest way to authenticate stateless. But the problem is, the moment you sign the token, this token has to store somewhere. So I can console the token over. I can give the token to the user, and I can say, "Ki whenever you come again onto my website, please come with this token. I don't want your username and password. I just want your token." Because in token, I can have username, I can have email, I can have role. So I will verify you are the same user that I have signed a token. Simple. It's just a normal receipt that you verify your order. Let's suppose you are going to Haldiram. You're placing an order of chole bhature. Let's suppose they give you a receipt. The whenever they don't have to worry about some other people can take your order. You have to present the receipt. This is my receipt. You have given me the order. That means a token of, you can say, authenticity. This is the same user. They have done the payment, right? And this particular token can be used in order to prevent re-logging in. That means you don't have to fire a token again. You don't have to ask the identity again of the user. You can use the token, right? And this particular token can be signed, and the problem is, how will I verify as a machine or as a server, how will I verify that this is the same token that I have signed? There should be identification of my token. This is the same token that I have signed and given to user. This is not some different token or a copied token. For that, you need to have a verification middleware on the front end or back end purpose, that is will be using a JavaScript code that will verify the token. Let's suppose I am asking a token to present by the user, and user is presenting me the token, and I will take that particular token and I will put my signature over here. I will take the token and I will verify using my signature. If the signature verified, that means this is my token. This token can be unlocked using this signature only. That means it's a stamp that is verifying this is the same user that I have signed the token for. How to do that? There are two methods in JWT that happens. First one is known as jwt.sign. That means whenever I need to sign the token, I will be using jwt.sign. Or when I have to verify the token, I will be using jwt.verify. Okay. Now look, let's try to build a authentication system that will you can say replicate, sign, and verify token. Let's try to build this. And let me just share my VS Code screen so you will be able to see. Till this part, you are clear now? Give me a quick yes in the chat if you are clear to this part. Because authentication is not something that you should be worrying ki I will be using front end or back end over this. You just have to worry, this is a flow that you need to understand. Flow is something that if you are able to understand the flow, everything will work fine. Now in order to get the flow, I will be using a plain JavaScript, not any fancy framework or something like that. I'll just install. Let's create a simple folder, JWT. Okay, and I just open a terminal over here, simple terminal. Okay, and that terminal will contain npm init by a JavaScript logic. I'll just write the JavaScript logic over here, and I'll open it package.json. I'll just use modular approach, not common JS. I'll create one file name is index.js. Okay, simple. And I will be using some methodology. Let's suppose npm install express. Okay, and I'll use JSON web tokens, JSON web token as well. Now I will be writing a pseudocode, so if you can understand. Let's suppose I'm creating a server for you. How to create a server? Let's suppose I'm saying import express from express. Just a simple thing. I'll create an app. Okay, express app. And let's try to start this app.listen. That I'm starting my server. Let's suppose giving a port number 3000, and I'm firing a callback function over here, and callback saying server started. Okay, simple. Server started. Simple. This is a basic server that I want. And now let's suppose after that I'm going to write a simple route. Okay, sir, Python. This is not about logic or language, because I do have fluency in JavaScript, so I'm using a little bit of JavaScript, but I'm not writing any program. I'm just giving you a pseudo code that you can understand how JWT work. That is simple. It's not an application. Okay. Now let's try to write JWT. Let's suppose whenever you want to make yourself register, so what you have to do? Let's suppose you are going to use app dot post. And let's suppose you are making a route of API that is register route. Simple. Huh? Can be, what is the comment? Let me just check it. Can we import a folder from one file to another folder? Yes, why not? Import can be done. Now let's go with the register route and try to make a request. Let's suppose I'm making a request response. Okay, request response, and I'm taking some details from the user. Right, and this particular thing and this request response will be wanting something from me. What it want? I will be using some email ID or password or username. Let's suppose I want from user, ki bhai, please give me your username. Okay. Give me your email as well and give me your password. Okay. I will take request.body. I will be wanting this thing from the user. Okay. Now, after you get this particular thing, what you can do, you can check whether this user is existing over here or not. Let's suppose after checking, I'll say const user. I will say is exist. Just a demo purpose, it is not original route that I'm writing. We will try to find, let's suppose the user is a model in the database. I'll try to find user.find simple or find one, and I will put this email over here. I just check this particular email and let me know if this user exists or not. And if this user does not exist, let's suppose if this user does not exist, what I can say, I can directly fire or return directly. Do not do anything, just return from there. And after that, if this is not true, I can justly fire user is registered successfully. That means user is registered and user have created in this particular thing. That means this route is complete, right? And this particular thing, and after that register is complete, I want to write a login. The moment user is creating their account, they will be coming to login in the system. And after logging it complete, how will I write a login? Let's suppose app.post, and I will write slash login. That means I will be writing a login route. Please give me what? I will be asking 2, 3 things from the user. Let's suppose I'm asking, give me an email and password. So I will do, give me a request and response. And I will say, give me your username, let's suppose, or email and password. If you are using email, you can say email, comma, password equal to request dot body. That means I will be asking, please give me a request dot a body and transfer me email and password. And I will try if this email exists or not. First, I need to check whether this email existing in my database or not. So I'll say if valid, or as simple, I'll check. How will I check? Const user is equal to, we will be doing database dot find one, and I will pass this email again. Just do let me know whether this user exists or not. If this user exists, simple. If this user exists, I'll return. What I'll return? I'll return response.json, and I'll fire this user. Simple. And before you can say, before you fire this, before you send a message ki login is successful, if that is the case, you also want to fire a token to the user key. Every time user cannot log in into your system, you want to assign a token ki I will be giving you a token, my friend, and every time you come to log in my system, please give me that token. I'll verify your token from my end. How to do this? Just import a JWT, that is a JSON web token. I'll say JWT from JSON web token. And before you send anything to the user, just create a token. How will I create token? Const token is equal to, we'll be creating JWT.sign. I'll sign. What I'll sign? I will take a user. Let's suppose I want to create an ID. I will take user dot underscore ID. I can also take email of the user dot email, and I can also take a role from the user. I can also take role is user.role. From the database, I can define the role as well. And after that thing is complete, that is a data. After that is completed, I will sign that particular thing with my key, that my secret key. So I can directly sign it. Let's suppose my key is Vikas123. That's my signature. That's a token that I want to sign it with, Vikas123. So whenever I need to verify the token, I need to verify the token with the same key that I am encoding it. That's a simple encoding and decoding, or you can say the encryption and decryption. I am using a key to encrypt this data, so I will have to use the same key to decrypt the data. That's a simple thing. And at the moment this particular thing is done, I can fire this token. I can print this token, console.log token. Simple. I can fire this token. And because if I fire this token, you need to make sure that user bring the token every time they are making a request, right? But how user can bring out every time the token? they might forget it. So I want to make sure that user doesn't forget the password. So what I can do, I can fire this particular thing in their cookies, and I will be setting their cookie. I can fire a token over here. Simple, I'll make a token cookie and I will be firing a token. I can fire it. And I can also provide some headers as well, like HTTP true, max age. I can provide how the cookie will expire. But if you don't want to do anything, you can just keep this as it is. I just want to save the token into your cookies. So after you assign the token can be printed as well. A token can be set it into headers, that is a cookie. So every time user will come, I will access their header and I will be able to fetch that cookie from the cookies itself or token itself, and I will be able to verify this token. But the problem is, how will I verify the token if I have signed it or not? So I need to create a middleware. I need to create a, let's suppose, a thing that can use my encrypted key to verify if there's a same token or not. So how I can do it? Let's create one more file over here. The file name is, let's suppose, is valid, or let's suppose verification.js. I just wanted to verify my user. Whenever the user will bring me a token, I will verify that token whether it's the same token that I have given to you or not. So what I require, let's suppose, I'll be requiring const verification token is equal to, I'll fire a request response, and next this is a middleware. And what I want to do something into this. What I want, I will first have to receive the token. Let me check few comments as well. Hello from Vietnam. Hello. Why are you demotivating us? भाई मैं बीटेक कर रहा हूँ. कोई बात नहीं, बीटेक कर रहे हो, कभी तो फ्रंट एंड करोगे, कभी तो रिएक्ट जेएस पे आओगे. नो वरीज जतिन, देयर इज नथिंग लाइक कि आपको कोई डिमोटिवेट कर रहा है, ऐसा कुछ भी नहीं होता है. दिस इज समथिंग जो हमें समझना पड़ेगा कुछ टाइम बाद, जब आप इंटरव्यू में बैठेंगे या जब आप कोई एप्लीकेशन बना रहे होंगे, तो ये ऑथेंटिकेशन फ्लो हुआ, सिक्योरिटी हुआ, ये सारी चीजें ना आपको धीरे धीरे समझ में आ जाएंगे. ऐसा कोई इशू नहीं है कि अगर आप डायरेक्टली देखेंगे तो ऐसा नहीं आपको एक दिन में समझ में आएगा. धीरे धीरे इस चीज को फ्लो में समझेंगे. तो ऐसा कोई टेंशन वाली बात नहीं है कि डिमोटिवेटेड होना जैसा कुछ भी नहीं है. ठीक है, बस आप इसको देखिए. अगर आपको समझ में आता है, इसको दोबारा ट्राई कर सकते हैं. जब भी हमारे बीटेक में रिएक्ट आए या नोड आए, जब आपको ऑथेंटिकेशन करना हो, देन यू कैन इम्प्लीमेंट इट. ओके, सो ऐसा कोई इशू नहीं है. सो डिमोटिवेट होने का कोई ऐसा रीजन नहीं है. ठीक है, तो डोंट वरी अबाउट इट. जस्ट सी व्हाट एक्चुअली फ्लो लुक्स लाइक. जरूरी नहीं है आपको सिंटैक्स अचानक से याद हो जाएगा. ऐसा मेरे को भी ये अचानक से याद नहीं हुआ था. आई हैव डन इट. मैं 4.5 साल से ये कर रहा हूँ. आई एम इन ट्रेनिंग फील्ड एंड आई एम सॉफ्टवेयर इंजीनियर फ्रॉम पास्ट 4.5 years. सो दिस इज समथिंग दैट आई हैव गेन्ड थ्रू दैट प्रोसेस. तो बिल्कुल सेम सिचुएशन होती है हमारी भी. जब भी मैंने बीटेक की थी तब भी मेरा भी ऐसा ही सिचुएशन था. ओके, सो डोंट वरी अबाउट इट. So I want to verify this token. First things first, I want to take the token from the user. कि भाई मुझे टोकन दो. टोकन मुझे कहां से मिल सकता है? तो I'll say const auth header. I have to access the header of it. Auth header is equal to, I'll say request dot header dot authorization key. Let's suppose I create a key authorization. कि भाई this is a key that you need to give. And sometimes what can happen, I can also get the cookies from the you can say token from the cookies. Simple, I can fire request dot cookie. Simple, I can get that. Now after I get the some value in auth header, it can be empty, right? ऐसा हो सकता है कि जब auth header में मैं कोई डेटा निकालने की कोशिश करूं, auth header खाली आए. तो मैं एक बार ये चेक कर लेता हूं. इफ अगर मेरा auth header खाली है, if there is no auth header, और अगर मेरा auth header आया है जो स्टार्ट नहीं हो रहा है, auth header स्टार्ट नहीं हो रहा है, starts with, किससे स्टार्ट नहीं हो रहा है? bearer से. bearer, that means it's a token bearer that you can utilize. अगर ऐसा नहीं हो रहा है तब मैं क्या करूंगा? तुरंत की तुरंत एक रिक्वेस्ट फायर करूंगा, response dot end. I'll fire कि access denied, कि you need to present a token to me. You cannot get thing without token. I will return that user from. Otherwise अगर टोकन मुझे मिल गया तो मैं क्या करूंगा? तो मैं उस टोकन को क्या करूंगा? स्प्लिट कर लूंगा. सिंपल, कि अगर मुझे ऑथ हेडर नहीं मिला और मैं टोकन को स्प्लिट कर लूंगा. और जनरली ऐसा देखने को मिलता है कि अगर मुझे ऑथ हेडर मिल गया तो मैं एक टोकन बनाऊंगा. टोकन इज इक्वल टू, I will do auth header dot split. आई विल स्प्लिट द टोकन, क्योंकि टोकन पता कैसे सिचुएशन में आएगा, टोकन ऐसे आएगा, बियरर स्पेस, ये तुम्हारा की होगा, दिस इज योर टोकन विल बी. सो व्हाट आई नीड टू डू, आई नीड टू स्प्लिट दैट पर्टिकुलर थिंग इन टू पार्ट. बियरर को मुझे अलग करना पड़ेगा, आई नीड टू कीप बियरर एंड द टोकन बिल्कुल सेपरेट. आई विल स्प्लिट दैट पर्टिकुलर टोकन एंड स्प्लिट इट बाय अ स्पेस एंड देन आई विल टेक अ टोकन दैट इज इंडेक्स 1. सिंपल, कि जो भी इस स्पेस को हटाने के बाद बचेगा वो मेरा टोकन होगा. अब इस टोकन को मैं वेरीफाई कैसे करूंगा कि ये वही टोकन है कि नहीं, तो मैं क्या करूंगा, const is valid, कि ये टोकन वैलिड है या नहीं. आई विल जस्ट प्रोवाइड JWT डॉट, पहले JWT को इंपोर्ट भी कर लेते हैं तो हमारे लिए थोड़ा सा आसान हो जाएगा. इंपोर्ट JWT फ्रॉम JSON web token. ओके, आफ्टर दैट आई विल से JWT डॉट वेरीफाई, कि भाई मैं इस टोकन को वेरीफाई करना चाहता हूं. अब वो ये रिसीव क्या करेगा, JWT डॉट वेरीफाई को चाहिए कि पहले तुम अपना जो टोकन लाए हो वो दे दो, नॉट टच इवन टोकन, और उसके बाद मैं इसमें अपना सीक्रेट की डाल के देखूंगा. सीक्रेट की क्या थी मेरी, विकास 1 2 3. दैट इज द सेम थिंग कि तुमने जो टोकन दिया है वो मुझे दो और उसमें मैं अपना की डाल के देखूंगा. अगर वो अनलॉक हो गया, अगर वो वेरीफाई हो गया, तो मैं डायरेक्टली से कह दूंगा इफ दिस देयर इज, इफ दैट इज वैलिड, अगर ये वैलिड टोकन निकल गया तो मैं तुम्हें सिंपल कह दूंगा कि भाई नेक्स्ट चले जाओ, कि या सिंपल ऐसे बोल दूंगा रिक्वेस्ट डॉट यूजर इज इक्वल टू इज वैलिड. सिंपल, कि भैया यूजर तुम्हारा वैलिड है और आप कहां जा सकते हो, आप नेक्स्ट जा सकते हो, यानी आगे जा सकते हो. अदरवाइज क्या करूंगा मैं, एल्स में फायर करूंगा एक रिस्पॉन्स जिसका स्टेटस क्या होगा, स्टेटस होगा इसका 401. 401 मींस अनऑथराइज्ड एक्सेस और इनवैलिड टोकन, कि भाई तुम्हें हम आगे नहीं जाने दे सकते, आपका टोकन वैलिड नहीं है. उसके बाद मैं एक इसमें जेसन भेज दूंगा, जेसन में एक मैसेज फायर कर दूंगा. मैसेज क्या होगा, मैसेज सिंपली होगा इनवैलिड टोकन. सिंपल, और इसको मैं क्या कर दूंगा, इसको इंपोर्ट कर दूंगा, एक्सपोर्ट कर दूंगा यहां से, एक्सपोर्ट डिफॉल्ट वेरिफिकेशन टोकन, कि भाई मैंने क्या किया, कि भाई मैंने वेरिफिकेशन टोकन यहां से लिया, यूजर का हेडर एक्सेस किया, उसमें से टोकन निकाला, टोकन को वेरीफाई किया, अगर टोकन सही है तो मैं उसको आगे भेज रहा हूं, अदरवाइज मैं कह रहा हूं भाई तुम यहां से वापस चले जाओ क्योंकि यू आर इनवैलिड टोकन. मान लेते हैं ये टोकन मुझे मिल गया. जब टोकन मुझे मिल गया तो मान लो मैं एक राउट को एक्सेस करने की कोशिश कर रहा हूं. ठीक है, याद रखना. अब मैं यूजर रोल क्या डाल रहा हूं, लेट सपोज मैंने यूजर रोल डाला है एडमिन, लेट सपोज यूजर डाला है, सिंपल फीड कर देता हूं कि मैंने रोल डाला है यूजर, पर मैं एक राउट बनाता हूं यहां पे app.get स्लैश ऑल यूजर, या लेट सपोज सिंपली यूजर्स, कि भाई इस राउट का मतलब क्या है कि मुझे सारे के सारे यूजर चाहिए. लेकिन क्या एक नॉर्मल यूजर सारे के सारे यूजर को एक्सेस कर सकता है, आंसर इज नहीं, नहीं कर सकता, क्योंकि ये सिर्फ एक एडमिन ही कर सकता है. मतलब ये वाला जो राउट है एक प्रोटेक्टेड राउट होने वाला है, राइट. रिएक्ट जेएस में हम क्या करते हैं, प्रोटेक्टेड राउट भी बना सकते हैं कि इस राउट को कोई एक्सेस नहीं कर सकता, इस राउट को सिर्फ वही लोग एक्सेस कर सकते हैं जिनके पास वैलिड क्रेडेंशियल है. तो मैं क्या करने वाला हूं कि app.got यूजर में एक्चुअली में क्या है कि भाई मैं रिक्वेस्ट और रिस्पॉन्स भेज रहा हूं, और रिस्पॉन्स में मैं सारे के सारे यूजर भेज रहा हूं, रिस्पॉन्स डॉट एंड और रिस्पॉन्स डॉट सेंड, सिंपली जेसन ही फायर कर देता हूं और मैं इसमें सारे यूजर्स भेज दे रहा हूं. सिंपल, बट द प्रॉब्लम इज ये वाला जो राउट है ये रोल बेस्ड राउट है, RBAC, रोल बेस्ड एक्सेस कंट्रोल, कि इसको वही लोग एक्सेस कर सकते हैं जिनका एडमिन राउट हो या एडमिन एक्सेस हो. बट यहाँ पे देखना, ये वाला जो टोकन मुझे मिलेगा उसका रोल क्या है, उसका रोल है यूजर. तो जब भी ये मिडिलवेयर तुम बनाओगे तो तुम्हारे टोकन में क्या जाएगा, एक रोल जाएगा, रोल का नाम होगा यूजर. तो यूजर कभी भी एडमिन राउट को एक्सेस कर ही नहीं सकता. तो जब भी मैं इस राउट को एक्सेस करने की कोशिश करूंगा, सबसे पहले मैं चाहता हूं कि मुझे वो टोकन दो. आई से इंपोर्ट वेरिफिकेशन टोकन, जो मुझे मिल गया है यहां से. अब मैं कहूंगा कि जब भी तुम इस राउट को एक्सेस करने की कोशिश कर रहे हो फ्रंट एंड में या बैक एंड में, प्लीज मुझे वो वेरिफिकेशन टोकन दे दो. क्या कहूंगा मैं, कि मुझे वो वेरिफिकेशन टोकन दे दो. अगर तुम वेरिफिकेशन टोकन नहीं दे पाए, दैट मीन्स समथिंग इज रॉन्ग, राइट. सिंपल सी चीज है कि जब भी अगर ये वेरिफिकेशन टोकन मुझे नहीं मिला, ये टोकन वेरीफाई नहीं हुआ, तो आई कैन डायरेक्टली शूट कि भाई तुम एक गलत यूजर हो, आप इस राउट को एक्सेस नहीं कर सकते, राइट. तो अब प्रॉब्लम, अब समझने की कोशिश करो कि ये वाला जो राउट है वो मेरा प्रोटेक्टेड राउट है ऑब्वियसली, एंड this route is being protected by a RBAC, that is role based access control. अब जिसमें मैं ऑथेंटिकेशन तो कर ही रहा हूँ सिंपली कि भाई एक ऑथेंटिकेशन तो मैंने लगा ही दिया है, बट मैं इसमें एक ऑथराइजेशन भी लगा रखा हूँ, राइट? कि भाई क्या कर सकते हैं कि भाई ओनली एडमिन कैन एक्सेस दिस राउट, तो मैंने डाला कि रोल, कि भैया एक रोल डाल देते हैं, रोल के बेसिस पे हम यूजर को बोलते हैं कि यू विल बी ओनली बी एक्सेसिबल टू दिस राउट ओनली इफ यू आर कमिंग एज एन एडमिन एक्सेस। तो जब भी आप एक टोकन असाइन करते हैं, यू कैन असाइन अ रोल विद इट टू इट, बट ट्राई नॉट टू कीप द पासवर्ड इनटू इट, राइट? एंड इस सिक्योरिटी के साथ साथ आप ए बी टेस्टिंग भी लगा सकते हैं। व्हाट इज ए बी टेस्टिंग? कि अगर ए हो रहा है तो बी होने के कितने चांसेस हैं, और ए के बदले बी कैसे ट्रेस करें, इसको यूनिट टेस्टिंग भी बेसिकली कहते हैं। आप वो चीजें भी कर सकते हैं फॉर योर रेफरेंस। बट सिक्योरिटी पर्पज से इफ यू आर यूजिंग JWT और रोल बेस्ड एक्सेस कंट्रोल एंड सैनिटी चेक बेसिक ऑथेंटिकेटर, एंड if you want to just write a rate limiter, let me just give you a rate limiting as well. If you want to go with the rate limiting in this particular scenario, how do we can rate a rate limit? I'll say npm install. I'll install a package named express rate limit. I just install a package into rate limit. This is a built-in package. I'll just use import limit. I'll use limit and from express rate limit. Simple. And I will define a rate limit. Let's suppose I'm defining const login limit. The user can log in into this user, and I will say login limit is limit, and I'll pass what? I will be passing key how much time you want to set a boundary for. Let's suppose I'm saying window ms. Let's suppose I'm saying 45 days. 45 into 60, that become hours. Let's suppose in 45 days, 24 hours, 60 minute, and 60 second, and 60 millisecond. That converted into millisecond. And limit, I will send max limit is 1. And if that went wrong, you can say a message. Message can be you can't update it. Update it. Simple. कि अगर मैं इस राउट के साथ साथ, या समझ लेते हैं वेरिफिकेशन टोकन के साथ साथ, इसमें एक लॉगिन लिमिट भी लगा दूं, यहाँ पे एक लॉगिन लिमिट भी लगा दूं, तो अब ये राउट डबल प्रोडक्शन में आ गया है कि ये पहले वेरीफाई भी करेगा कि भैया ये यूजर एक्चुअल में वही यूजर है या नहीं, और ये भी चेक करेगा कि इस पर्टिकुलर यूजर का लिमिट तो हिट नहीं हो रहा है, राइट? कि ऐसा तो नहीं है ये यूजर मल्टीपल टाइम आ गया वो मेरे राउट पे, दैट इट इज नॉट अलाउड। सो आई कैन थ्रो अ रिस्पॉन्स कि भैया आप बहुत ज्यादा बार आ चुके हैं, आप नहीं आ सकते इस पर्टिकुलर वेबसाइट पे इन 45 डेज, ओनली वन टाइम इज अलाउड। दैट इज नोन एज, यू कैन से राउट बेस्ड रेट लिमिटर, कि मैं इस राउट को लिमिट कर रहा हूं कि यूजर इस राउट को ओनली फ्यू टाइम कैन एक्सेस इट। सो आई होप कुछ समझ में आया होगा, यू गॉट सम अंडरस्टैंडिंग हाउ टू डू ऑथेंटिकेशन एंड ऑथराइजेशन, और यू कैन से हाउ टू सेट अप ऑथेंटिकेशन एंड ऑथराइजेशन प्रोटोकॉल इन योर एपीआईज ऑन फ्रंट एंड, कि जब भी आपको करना हो तो ये कैसे काम करता है, स्टेटलेस ऑथेंटिकेशन कैसे होता है, रोल बेस्ड ऑथेंटिकेशन कैसे करते हैं, रेट लिमिट कैसे कराते हैं, एबी टेस्टिंग क्या होता है, और एपीआई कॉन्ट्रैक्ट्स कैसे लिखते हैं, राइट, और सिक्योरिटी कैसे करते हैं। Got it? Give me a quick one in the chat. Let me check. I'm still in university. Am I still in the university? Am I too late for software engineering? In which year you are? In which year you are? That totally defines the flow. It has to be. Third year? No. लेट तो वैसे कभी भी नहीं होता है। आई बी वेरी फ्रैंक विद यू कि देयर इज नथिंग लाइक लेट, यू कैन स्टार्ट वेन एवर यू वांट। Computer science, that's a good approach. Obviously there are students that can crack an internship, that had cracked internship in companies like Tata 1mg's Salesforce as well, that was not coming from the CSE background, they were from, let's suppose, BBA background, or let's suppose especially BCA background. But it's all about how you are learning your skill, how much time you can dedicate, because you cannot, I cannot say कि भाई you can bunk the class or something like that, because whenever you come on campus placement, these are also important. कि CGPA will also be there, attendance will also be there, right? But you need to keep that in mind कि university do provide a limited scope, and competition in the industry has already been, let's suppose you can say, बहुत ज्यादा, It is a too much of a competition for us. 30 40 you can say 1,000 rupees job or internship, they are asking HLD level question. They are not asking you to write a small function, they are asking you to design system. And that was the purpose of this series, how to design authentication flow, how to design authorization flow. So you can start, but you need to pick a tech stack that you are very comfortable in. But this is totally based on opinion, right? You cannot say ki sir is saying, yeah, Vikas is saying, yeah, somebody else is saying the JavaScript is good, then you can pick JavaScript. No, if you are enjoying JavaScript, be in that particular field. If you are enjoying Python full stack, you can go. If you want to go in generative AI, please pick Python and machine learning or mathematics, probability, statics. But try to sit every day for 2 3 hours, try to dedicate or try to focus on whatever your goal is. And was one last thing I just wanted to say: do not miss computer fundamentals. Again and again, every session, every webinar, every seminar, I do say, I do request, please do not ignore computer fundamentals. These are the topics: object oriented programming, computer networks, DBMS, operating system. These are the fundamental thing that will going to be asked in an interview apart from DSA. Web development or some other development comes secondary. And if you will not be getting even interview if you are not a very good at computer fundamental, because they cannot directly ask you, tell me React, tell me Fiverr. They'll start from fundamentals: JavaScript fundamentals, programming fundamentals, networking fundamental. If somebody say, what is TCP protocol? What is OSI layer? Can you explain me? If you are stuck in that, how you are supposed to get question like, what is React Fiber? What is conciliation? What is virtual DOM? They will not ask you. They know ki you are weak at computer fundamental or JavaScript fundamental. That means you don't know about memory management. You don't know about optimization thing. That's where a student do fumble in off-campus round or even on campus. When they start asking you the flow of the project, you get stuck here. I don't know what is the flow of the project, how the authentication flow is working, how I am assigning the database, why I am selecting MySQL, or why I am selecting MongoDB as a database. That is a computer fundamental thing that you need to be aware of. Okay, so you can start working on that, and still 5 6 months, I will say 3 4 months is fair enough time period to prepare for interviews and placement. But if you're having third year, you are having whole third year and fourth year to start working on that and to get a good placement. Still opportunities are you can say rising day by day. It is not like that the opportunity is not there. If somebody is saying ki opportunity has been crashed by AI, they are you can say misinforming or misguiding you. Opportunities are still there, but they want an updated engineer. They don't want an outdated engineer who doesn't understand things that is currently going on. So you need to prepare yourself on that framework. I need to be updated on the current knowledge as well, but fundamental needs to be covered as well. Okay, so I hope that this helps. Any other questions, guys? You can do let me know, and then we can wrap this up. If you're having any other question, do let me know. You're welcome. You're welcome. Any other question, guys? I'll be glad to take some other question. One, two more question, then we'll wrap up. Okay, if you're not having any question, then Vicky will be seeing you in the next session where I'll be discussing the best practices of testing and best practices of environment variables and deployment as well, where CI/CD pipeline will be discussed, GitHub actions I'll discuss, and project structure of microservices and distributed architecture or monorepo, polyrepo. We'll discuss that, how to design or how to think alongside like a programmer. If you want to create a SaaS product, if you want to create a project for your placement and college, how you define a structure, how to set up unit test casing, or how to test route. These are things that we are going to see as well. Okay, so I'll see you in the next session. It was a wonderful session that you interacted with me and you listened me out, so thank you for that. So I'll see you in the next one. Till then, you take care and bye bye.